Well, hello, my little ghouls and goblins. Taylor here, your casual crypt keeper, and welcome on back to Top 5 Scary. I got something for you now. Now, we're a video channel, we're on YouTube, we don't do a whole lot of reading, but we love horror movies here. And some of the best horror movies ever have been based on books you've never even read. Who would have thought? The Shining, The Exorcist, Hellraiser, all based on classic books. So let's get ahead of the curve here and take a look at some future hits, and pick out some horror books that should be blockbuster hits. This is the top 5 terrifying books that should be made into horror movies. Let me know down below if any of these leap out at you and you'd love to buy a ticket to them, or if there was a horror book you love that I missed. Maybe we could even do a part 2 of something like this. And I mean, if any of these books do get made into movies, I would like a check at least, or a producer credit. I'm not picky. Now let's get into it. Number 5, House of Leaves. Coming up first today is going to be the novel House of Leaves, a very unconventional and postmodern horror novel written by Mark Z. Danielewski. The novel is a bit of a complicated read and even more complicated to explain, but I'll do my level best. It tells the story of a mysterious and ever-changing house that becomes the focus of obsession. The book contains multiple narratives and layers, intertwining storylines, like I said, postmodern. But the main storyline revolves around a man named Johnny Truant, who discovers a manuscript titled The Navidson Record, written by a deceased man recounting experiences with a photographer named Will Navidson, who moves with his family into a house that defies the laws of physics. The house appears larger on the inside than it does the outside, with rooms and hallways that shift, expand, contract, defying all physical laws of the world, while our protagonist becomes obsessed with the text, leading him down a rabbit hole of madness and self-reflection. The book too includes various academic and critical essays, footnotes, appendixes, analysis to make the book seem more real and to get you really intertwined in all these spinning narratives playing out at once. It's a very cool usage of the medium. So this is a pretty complicated book and not an easy text at all, and adapting it I think would be a Herculean task. But I think it could be done. After watching the Canadian indie horror classic Skinamarink, I think with the right team you definitely could make it. Skinamarink was a super unique horror movie about a house that has its doors start to disappear overnight, in a similar vein to that kind of surrealist horror from House of Leaves. I think if a movie isn't on the table too, a limited Netflix or HBO series would be perfect for something like this. An extended runtime would help pack in all that intricacy that the book demands, and would be great for fans to dig in, speculate, discuss each episode as they air. I could totally see this being like a big sleeper hit with indie horror fans, a little smaller scale budget for some surrealist scares. And if you're looking for more stories about books that have already been made into horror movies, or anything else in the world that's freaky, seriously, if you can think of something scary, the odds are pretty good we've done 2 or 3 videos on it. We've got all of that and then some. Make sure you hit subscribe. Please ring that little bell next to the subscribe button so you don't miss a single one of our videos. And I know I'm asking a lot here, but do that at the end of this one, because I got 4 more books coming up for you right now. Number 4, Tender is the Flesh. Coming up next is going to be the novel Tender is the Flesh, a dystopian novel written by Argentinian author Agustina Basterrica. Set in a grim and unsettling future, the story explores a world where animals are infected with a virus that makes them lethal to consume, leading to a massive shift in the food industry. Maybe it's just the last couple years, but I feel like stories about viruses affecting the whole planet just aren't hitting the same way anymore. I feel like that's kind of been ruined. The novel centers around Marcos, a middle-aged man who works at a processing plant for special meat. In a society where we can't eat animal meat, but a demand for meat still exists, I think you can see where this is going, human flesh consumption becomes an alternative to consuming animals. Humans are bred like livestock, raised and slaughtered for their meat the way we treat cows and pigs. The book is basically vegetarian propaganda, and it does raise a lot of thought-provoking and, I'll say it, downright unsettling explorations of things like dehumanization, the ethics of the food industry, the consequences of a society driven by profit and overconsumption. I know, like, you know, Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers are pretty scary, but overconsumption is actually scarier than either of them. It's one of those stories that works as a good, uncomfortable reflection of ourselves. I think it would be perfect for a movie. The story is compelling, the themes are uncomfortably indicative of our society. It's the kind of thing that would get people talking. You'd leave the theater talking to your friends about it. There's a ton to analyze, and also I think this novel's premise is so horrifying, but imagine some of that brought to life, you know? Imagine the images of this. Sets of a human meat processing factory, people on a factory line being processed. Oh, PETA would love it, I can tell you that. You probably get them to fund this. Just describing it like this sounds absolutely gut-wrenchingly disgusting. I couldn't imagine it on the big screen, but I could really easily see this becoming an A24 indie, super esoteric horror movie that all your cool friends are talking about at parties. Number 3, the Atrocity Archives. Coming up next is going to be the Atrocity Archives by Charles Stross. Now, Charles Stross has got to be one of the best working horror authors out there, and possibly this is one of the better examples of his writings. The Atrocity Archives. It's the first book in the Laundry Files series, which is a fun blend of sci-fi, fantasy, espionage, just a little bit of twist of corporate meddling, all sorts of genres all mixing in one big book soup. The story is set in a modern day world where magic and Lovecraftian horrors exist alongside advanced technology, which is something I just go, I was gonna say but I can't say that, why did I say it anyway? Which is something I love. I love a blend of science and magic. The Dresden Files hit me right here, love that stuff. The protagonist of the Atrocity Archives is Bob Howard, a low-level IT tech working for a government agency known as the Laundry, kind of like a Men in Black sort of deal. The organization is hidden away from the public eye, and their job is to protect the world from supernatural threats and to prevent the accidental summoning of eldritch entities that could destroy humanity, you know, stuff like that. Howard gets himself involved in a massive conspiracy, learning that certain mathematical algorithms can inadvertently open portals to other dimensions, allowing monsters into our world. Discovering as well that there exists an organization called the Black Chamber, which seeks to exploit these otherworldly creatures for their own gain, even at the cost of humanity. All of that to say, this is the perfect pitch for a genre-bending horror summer classic. People love the Men in Black movies, and I know those are a lot sillier than what this is, but this could very easily fill a similar niche with a Lovecraftian angle. People go crazy for cosmic horror stuff, conspiracies, corporate espionage, wizards, high tech. It's got a little bit of something for everyone to love inside this story. As well, because this is the first in a series of books that are all in a shared world, this hypothetical movie, if it ended up doing really well, Hollywood could do their favorite thing and make some sequels. You could have 9 movies out of this. You could have a horror blockbuster franchise on your hands if you adapt this properly. Number 2, Hex. Our next entry coming at the number 2 spot is Hex. Hex is a horror novel written by Dutch author Thomas Olduvelt. The story takes place in the picturesque town of Black Spring, located in the Hudson Valley of New York. Of course, this being a horror novel, the town has a dark secret. A 17th century witch named Catherine Van Wyler haunts the area, with her eyes and mouth sewn shut. Now, this novel follows the lives of the townspeople who have lived under her curse for centuries. The witch's presence is pervasive, and her malevolent influence is felt by everyone in town. The residents of Black Spring have implemented strict rules and surveillance to ensure the witch remains contained and hidden from the outside world. However, things take a sinister turn when a group of rebellious teenagers decides to break the town's rules and begin to spread Catherine's haunting image beyond Black Spring. As a result, the witch's powers intensify, causing unrest and chaos to the town's inhabitants. Now, while I was describing that to you, does that not already sound like the premise for a great horror movie? I mean, come on, witches with their eyes sewn shut? I'm getting spooked just reading about it. Now, if you thought that sounds like a good horror movie, you and I aren't the only ones, because the film rights for this were bought by Warner Brothers sometimes in 2016. So what's happening? What's taking so long? This seems like the easiest setup and knockdown in Hollywood history. Cast, I don't know, Vera Farmiga as the witch or something. Go out in the woods, film something remote on a small budget, you've got a summer hit. Why isn't this script being made? Do you guys need me to write it? I'm willing. My schedule's pretty open right now. Warner Brothers, shoot Top 5 Scary a DM, have your folks talk to my folk. Tay's looking for work. My rate is very, very affordable. At number 1, The Mountain of Madness. And finally, at our number 1 spot is going to be The Mountain of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft, the legendary horror novelist and racist. H.P. Lovecraft is one of the most influential horror writers of the modern age. Stephen King has been very outspoken about how Lovecraft is one of his driving inspirations, and just about every cosmic horror story published since owes a debt of gratitude to the tentacled horrors Howard Phillips dreamed up. While there have been adaptations of his works before, some adapted more contemporary, some keeping the original settings, surprisingly, however, one of his most famous works, at At the Mountain of Madness is still awaiting the film treatment. The Mountain of Madness is one of Lovecraft's best works, following a team of scientists that are in a remote part of Antarctica and discover ancient alien ruins, meeting ancient old ones and their civilization trying to escape back to society. It's got all the best Lovecraft beats that you love. It's got fear of the unknown, humanity's insignificance, technology versus spirituality. It's fantastic and has all the makings of a big movie. So what's happening? Well, Guillermo del Toro, Oscar-winning director and lover of monsters, has said before that At the Mountain of Madness is his dream project. He's actually been developing a version of it since 2006, but the project has clearly been in development hell. At one point, Tom Cruise was attached, produced by James Cameron, which would have made like $1 billion trillion, but it doesn't exist, unfortunately. Some test footage of the film is all that's ever been shown, and it's some pretty cool footage of a CGI monster, so you know that the designs for this movie would have gone off like crazy. Unfortunately, nothing has ever come of it. Will it still come someday? Del Toro has said never say never, but his optimism for the project isn't high, and has said that his vision for it has changed so much that he'd have to rewrite the whole script. If you simply can't wait, The Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix is very Lovecraft inspired, and is great proof that Guillermo is absolutely the #1 director to do a Lovecraft movie. Well, after 1980s John Carpenter, but he's not making movies anymore. That's about all she wrote for this one, my ghouls and goblins. Thanks so much for watching. Creep on, creeping on, and take it easy now.